Three. Hello and welcome to Dev TV. Today is another person of inspiration that we're broadcasting, and it is important for us to really take note of some of the people that are dedicating incredible amount of time to making sure that all is well with us and we can elevate everybody's situation. So I know that sounds a bit cryptic, but wait to see more. Welcome to Dev TV. As you know, Dev TV, we profile ideas, innovations, and individuals doing incredible stuff in economic development. Today is a form of economic development that is the foundation for all economic development principles. Today, we're talking about a gentleman that has incredible accomplishment in his own discipline, but has decided to do something really amazing for the world, really. This gentleman I'm talking about currently runs two businesses. He runs a Studio Flame. It's an architectural practice. And he runs another town building project alongside this studio, this architectural studio. He's worked across the globe. He's worked in Vancouver, Canada. He's worked in United Kingdom. He's worked in South Africa. And the theme across all of his accomplishment has been helping poor people, or perhaps I ought to say urban areas, in developing the way they do town planning, in where architecture is done to really fit into the life of the people that live in these areas. He has won numerous awards. He's a recipient of Mandela Washington Fellowship, Ashoka's Changemakers finalist, Alan Gilbert Scholar Award, Arkwright Award, winner of Uganda Ministry of Housing. Look, the list goes on. This is an incredible man that has done amazing things for in his own personal career. On top of that, he has developed something that I'm going to introduce to you now, and we'll talk to him about this a bit later.
Based in Masindi, and we're using artifacts to simplify mathematics to children. Over the last 1 year, we have been training about 30 teachers on how to use teaching and learning aids in the classroom so that they can simplify how mathematics is taught to children. So we are reaching out to about 30 teachers who are then teaching children in about 4 schools. So about 1,000 students have been reached through this program.
Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Al Habib, for having me on the show.
Thank you very much for taking the time to join us, and thank you for all of the hard work that you've been doing. So I gave a very brief introduction of who you are, but what I really would appreciate is if you can tell us more about yourself, how you got started in architecture, and what drove you to begin to do these things that we just played out in the video, but I will explain to people a bit later.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Andrew Amara, and I grew up in Uganda, in 2 towns. One is Hoima town in the west of the country, and also Kampala in the capital city of Uganda. And really, I ended up in the architecture program because I liked to put things together. And you find that the architectural program is a space where you actually think about space and how people use space, and shelter and how people use shelter, and also cities. So it was fairly interesting and intriguing, and that's how I ended up doing the architecture program. During my training, we were taught to do nice, fancy buildings of steel and glass and skyscrapers. And so that's what we were trained to do as architectural students. But the reality, when I left my university and got out there to work, is that you find that people have different space challenges. Many are not thinking about glass and steel, but they simply want shelter over their roofs. They want to be able to afford a house. They want to be able to get to find a road that can take them to the house, to find water. They want to have a location that gives them access to opportunities. And so there was a bit of a disconnect. So I went back to school to do another program. And this was really an urban planning and development program that was focusing on how we think about communities as a whole and cities as a whole, and how we develop and impact society through buildings and through space and through architecture and through planning. And that was the foundation for the practice that I founded. So after working for about 5 or so years, I gravitated my focus towards developing solutions for vulnerable communities and low-income communities and households and groups of that kind. And so this took me on a journey in different places. At one point, I was working with residents in a township in South Africa. And here we were simply developing a solution for drainage, on how they can drain the waste out of their neighborhood, and on how they can have improved toilets. At one point, I was in Vancouver, and believe it or not, Vancouver also has a slum. I was shocked to find a slum, but there is actually a quarter of Vancouver where you have homeless people. And in this case, we were just trying to develop a solution where they can still have a home, but also the city can also develop. You can have the development of people's households alongside the development of also public interest or commercial interests. So how do you pursue public and commercial interests alongside also the interests of the homeless needs? How do you bring those two together so that both are happy? The city gets what they want and the homeless people also get what they want. So I have had the chance to work with different communities in different spaces. Back here in Kampala, working in some of the slums, trying to find solutions. One of our recent projects was developing a $5,000 house, a 2-bedroom house, materials. The genesis, really, the end of the day, the goal is we are trained to do so many nice and fancy things, and we are trained in the latest technology, and we're up to date with the current trends. But how do we package these for those who can't afford? How do we package these for the vulnerable homes, the vulnerable communities? How do we take the very best, of these advancements and technologies and give them to a household, so that the household can have a house that is built from good materials, clean materials? They can harvest their rainwater. They can use solar for lighting. They could even have smart installations in their household. Yeah. And yes, 5,000 US dollars. 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchenette and a toilet.
Wow.
So right now, I'm doing a series of projects where we're trying to scale up and impact communities. Usually for shelter, the problems are usually 4. The first is land. The second is finance. The third is the cost of construction. And then the final one is infrastructure, the roads, the power, and the water. So we're now trying to take these ideas for sustainable shelter and scale them up so that we can actually impact housing at a bigger level. And we're working with a series of partners. For example, the Pension Fund in Uganda has quite a lot of money, and they would like to make a deliberate push into the sector. But also with researchers at Makerere University, for example, who are looking to innovate and introduce new solutions in the housing space. But that being said, at the core of architecture is something called mathematics. And we deal with numbers every day, and that has been my passion. I really love mathematics. And it's what I use every day. I calculate dimensions, I calculate figures, I calculate numbers, heights, and space. So it's everywhere. And math is a backbone, not only for my profession, but even lawyers use mathematics.
Just before you go on to the mathematics stuff, we'll come to that. What I really want to try and establish is how did you, was this a commercial chase that you did? Because you were trained in architecture. You then went to do training in urban planning, especially urban planning that makes housing affordable to low-income communities. Was this a commercial decision, or there was something else that inspired you to sort of like move away? I shouldn't say move away. You're still in architecture, but to combine architecture and urban planning for low-income people. Was that a commercial decision, or was something else driving that?
I think the main thing was the way during the years that I was in my secondary school and also on campus, the space where I was staying was really close to a slum. So I mean, every morning you wake up and you have to jump a puddle of water to get to go to the university. And also the neighborhood didn't have roads. You couldn't drive into the neighborhood. Yes, there were little shacks and houses, but you couldn't drive there. There was no clean water. Power was intermittent. And then, of course, the filth. There's a lot of dirt and filth. And this is in the capital city. I mean, this is happening in the capital city. So people can't stay like this. I mean, you can't live like this. And here I was, a graduate of architecture, who's supposed to give shelter solutions. But I mean, that's the reality of our people. This is how they are living. And you see, architecture trained us to look at just one building, one house, whilst urban planning and development is a bit bigger than that. You're looking at a group of houses, a collection, a settlement, and you're also looking at the city at a bigger level. And it also has the element of development. You just don't build a house to have shelter, but you think of a house as a means for a household to grow and improve themselves, because the house is an asset. It's a starting point for a family. It's a location. It's a source of identity for a household, and it's a multiplier effect. If somebody has a good house, it's a spillover effect for them. They have security. They have a place to go back to put their head to rest, and it's also a nexus for things like water and energy. Yes. So, but really, the drive was this situation, the reality on the ground, where I was staying and what I grew up seeing. That really drove me to actually push myself and ask myself, there must be a solution for this. And here am I saying I'm an architect. I need to find a plausible solution. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, some of the issues we've always had is that we have well-trained experts in some of the issues that we have in Africa. And these are Africans that are well accomplished and they do well in their profession. But they have not made the leap that you have made to really create a practice, an income generating practice that solves, not only gives you income, but solves a problem that we have across Africa. I mean, this is especially inspiring. So if anybody's out there listening to this, they really ought to begin to think about how they can make sort of a commercial decision, but that has a really good social impact and developmental impact in Africa.
Yes, and now, perhaps maybe to add to that point.
Yeah,
just add to that point was that for most of the shelter solutions that we have in Uganda, focus on the high end clientele. We have houses that are $150,000 US, $200,000 US, and those are the solutions out there that people are giving. But no one is thinking about the low income. Yes, the government has attempted to do some things, but many of these have waned and are not as impactful. Very few, maybe one or two private developers are also thinking about middle income, but none really is seriously delivering a solution for the low income. So there's an untapped market out there. So whilst this is something of social importance, there's also a route for commercial success as well, if one finds a solution for this huge chunk of a sector that still doesn't have a proper housing solution.
And this is across Africa. I mean, I know for sure that at least 4 African countries that that I've been in, that I've done some work with, they are looking for affordable solution for low-income families. And if you're developing a solution that's $5,000 US dollars, I think that would reach a fair number of people, and in Africa, not just in Uganda, across Africa. I mean, that's fantastic. Now, I know that's not the subject of our discussion today. The subject of our discussion today really is this other thing that you're doing. I mean, I don't know how you have time for all of this. You have an architectural practice, you have a town planning practice, and you then have this incredible stuff that you're doing for education in rural areas. So you've developed a system to teach mathematics in these rural areas, or at least to get students a lot more interested in mathematics so they can join the STEM disciplines. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Perhaps maybe let me start from the beginning of this journey, because back in town, I and a few of our partners wanted to give back to the community, because this is a community that has nurtured us. We grew in these villages, and this is home for us, right? But this is really in the village and deep down there in the rural area. And whilst we have been able to make it out and build a career, a vast majority don't make it out of the villages. And this is because of, the facilities and the resources in the villages are really meager, and they're little. You don't have the space and the avenues to further your career, or to read and to do a good education. So we started a school, a community school, and our focus was really to give children from nursery school and primary school a firm foundation, so that they can have a fighting chance when they go to secondary school at a higher level. And this community school, the focuses were really on literacy and numbers at nursery level, and then primary school is really following the routine curriculum. Sort of our way to give back to the community, and also a way to support the villages, so that children actually can, those who actually come to the school could actually have better opportunities elsewhere. And of course, we have been running a series of different programs on different focuses, but something that we are passionate about is mathematics. And this is because, of course, in the course of our careers, we use mathematics, but also we have been doing quite a bit of research on how to improve the way mathematics is taught, because it is shocking that most of the children we meet don't like the subject. They drop it when they have the chance to. Very few go on to do math or sciences at a higher level.
They will be exactly like me. Yes, I dropped it as soon as.
So most, and there is this kind of fear that many have, that they attach to mathematics, and they say, no, that is a hard subject, and they have all these connotations. And because of that baptism of fear on mathematics, they miss out on all the other science and STEM courses that stream from mathematics. They don't get into technology. Some of them run away from economics. Some of them run away from physics. And yet, these are very important for such an economy as ours, which is agricultural based. We are trying to build a manufacturing sector. Recently, we discovered oil. So who's going to run all these industries if we don't have students in STEM? So we, after doing a couple of different research interventions, we thought that it would be wise to change the way mathematics is delivered to children, and improve the way it is taught, so that this fear, first of all, watered down, but also that children may see the relevance of mathematics. They may realize that it's in everyday life, and that it's not this big animal that you should fear. And of course, over the last 5 years, after doing some research, we did two interventions across the country and also with Makerere. We then crafted a program where we can use local and cultural artifacts and aids to simplify the way mathematics is actually taught to the children. So we are not touching the curriculum per se, because the math curriculum is quite detailed and has its own challenges and issues, and it is varied across the region. In Kenya, they have their curriculum has its own issues, and also in Rwanda and Tanzania. Sudan is also thinking about their curriculum. So the curriculums are changing over time. But whichever math curriculum you use, the delivery of that content should be done in an effective manner so that there is learning. Currently, in many of our schools in Uganda, and indeed also in Kenya and Tanzania, most of the children go to school to cram and pass exams. That is the motivation. And many parents, unfortunately, also are pumping their students to go and pass. They are pumping them to go and pass, to master these courses and the subjects just to pass. That is the motivation. And what that means is that after an exam, all that information is blank. I mean, the minds of the students are blank and they can't apply, which is a wrong way of teaching. It's important that children comprehend. It's important that there's actual learning, and that children are able to connect the dots. And that is why this program is of importance. So that when students or when these children are in a classroom, it is not just about the exam that is coming at the end of the term or the month, but it's about, where am I going to use this mathematics in my life? I mean, how is it going to help me to do X, Y, and Z? Or how have I seen my parents using it as they go to the farm every day? Or how have I seen the carpenter next door using mathematics to make a bed? Or how did my mom use it when she's cooking at home? And how is she applying mathematics there? So we are trying to make mathematics come alive. We don't want it to be on the blackboard and a strange formula written on the blackboard. We want it to be really a part of life for these children. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. And the unique thing about this program is we chose to start in the rural sector, a space which is handicapped because of the challenges, like resources. Some of them don't have classrooms, or if they do have classrooms, they don't have windows, they don't have benches. The teachers sometimes come, sometimes they don't come, they're not well paid. So we chose to develop this program in that kind of context, that kind of cooking pot in the rural corners, and where you have this mixed bag of issues. But also, these are the people who need it the most, who need to improve the way mathematics is taught. These are the people who need that education gap to be closed. They need their careers to be built on a firm foundation. They need that spark of innovation, because mathematics is really it's the engine of innovation at the end of the day. That thinking, that logical thought process, that creativity is brought to life with mathematics education.
Do you know what is wonderful about this? I mean, as you did in the urban planning, you're doing in education. What is interesting to me as you were speaking was that you are combining the issues that we have right now with the prospects of the future. So we all know that technology and engineering and sciences are really the future, because if you don't have good groundings on those things, it will be very hard to adopt and even adapt some of the technologies that are being developed right now. And so this incredible stuff that you're doing, which will now plug Africans into the future. And I just wondered, are you getting the support that you need in terms of the government, in terms of experts in the field, and in some cases the international NGOs? Are you getting the same sort of help or support that will really scale these incredible ideas that you have? Are you getting that at all?
I think at different levels there is it's, I would say, a mixed bag. First of all, our direct stakeholders, and these are really the beneficiaries, the children and the teachers. Now, these groups are very excited. The children are excited about this kind of lesson. I mean, they are keen to go back the next day to learn mathematics, if it is going to be taught with a pot in front of them, or with a sugar cane in front of them. I mean, they will come running and also bring certain aids to participate in the lesson. And also, the teachers are being reawakened, because many teachers end up teaching as a fourth choice, fifth choice. They would have preferred to be doctors or lawyers, but they didn't maybe get the good grades, so they end up teaching. And so it's out of just making money. But with this switch to teaching in this different format, you find that they are being turned, something is switching on in their minds to make them think about it differently and to give them a sense of purpose and motivation. So we're seeing that excitement from the teachers and the children. Also, a number of the leaders of the schools, the head teachers and the proprietors of the schools, and this maybe I would call private sector, they are keen to especially see how this learning can impact the performance of the students. Because if one continues on this program for consistently for a series of 3, definitely you will see a marked improvement in the performance of the children. So for the heads of the schools, for them, it's about the end game. They want to see that after a series of time or a period, can the performance actually also be improved, so that we can see a change in students' grades. At a district level, because Uganda is organized into a number of districts, we have gained support. Eventually, we got some support from the district leaders, slowly working our way. Of course, it took some time, but now they actually see the value of this approach, and they have been helping us to monitor some of the schools that we are trying out our program in. And they have given us a good boost, especially a vote of confidence, and linked us to other teacher training colleges in the area that could complement our training staff. But when we move the scale up further to the ministry, we did have a few bottlenecks. So different aspects in the ministry were slow to catch up on what we were doing, and some of them were not so sure of where we're heading. So there was that, the reception wasn't as great at the start. However, after a year of what we were doing, when we actually had some statistics, when we actually had some results to show, then the interest picked up. And this interest was primarily from the department that deals with the curriculum, and also the department that deals with training of teachers, because they realize that our approach is a call back to the principles that the principles that teachers are being given in their training colleges, that you should use learning aids in class. And this practice had died away. So we are simply reinforcing a principle that is very important for teachers to use learning aids. And also, it comes at a time when the ministry is realizing that our curriculum, which has heavily been bent on cramming and mastering topics, should transition to comprehension-based, where there's actually real learning, so that the learning of the child is far most important. And this transition with the new ministry leadership over the last 2 years has been trying to find a way to actually improve and refine the curriculum. So there is talk now next year that actually the planning of a new curriculum is in the offing. And this nicely sits well with our program, because our program actually is it's built for comprehension and for learning. And if the way children are examined is going to change to encourage comprehension and learning, then that is then the way students are being taught now has to change for sure. It has to change. So in the start, I would say that support from the ministry wasn't there, but now we're beginning to see interest. There is interest. At a global level, and perhaps on this, in relation to international organizations and those who are playing in the space of education, we have made some contacts with different entities. There are some who actually have programs that are parallel to what we're doing. For example, there's an English program that we want to join forces with, still in the same area, because we find that if you can communicate mathematics well, that is the first half of it. If you can't understand what somebody is communicating, so English is important. But also at a regional scale, we have had some support. We have had chats with the USAID, who are keen to visit our program. We were blessed to win a grant from Australia, from the Department of Foreign Affairs, and a program called NICTA. And this really gave us a huge boost because it allowed us to pilot this program. It allowed us to test this program and to really roll it out and check if it works and cover the bottlenecks. But also now it has positioned us to start thinking about scale. How do we now move across the region? How do we move from Western Uganda? And now how do we look at all the other corners of the country? How do we begin to ask ourselves how we can actually share this idea with Kenya, with Tanzania, with Rwanda, and with Sudan? So that's where we're at. But we're receiving quite a good amount of help and support.
No, fantastic. Look, I don't want to take too much of your time. Thank you very much. I mean, my hope is really that this is going out to LinkedIn, and most of my connections are in development. And it is hoped that all of this development people, be it donor agencies or donor projects, that are concerned with housing and education, can actually really begin to see that there are incredible innovations that's been developed across Africa, and especially the stuff that you're doing in Rutindo, which would in my own view can apply to all corners of Africa. And I sincerely hope that some of them will reach out to you. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you, and what sort of address would you put up for them to get in contact with you?
Okay, thank you. We have a website, and that is rutindo.com, and that ideally is a starting point where you can find a lot about our journey, about the past couple of years, about the genesis of this program that we are working on. But you could also just Google math and culture, because the unique thing about our program is that we are trying to use local artifacts, local tributes, local ideas, and cultural ideas to teach mathematics. So if you also Google math plus culture, you should be able to find us on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Facebook. But the starting point is rutindo.com for information about us. And we welcome all the support and feedback and comments, and especially technical advice for the experts keen on teaching, but also even parents out there who are looking to improve the way mathematics is taught to their children. Any kind of advice or input is welcome. You can also just join us along for the journey and see our progress, and watch us and cheer us on. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for being our person of inspiration today. And you certainly have inspired me. And I'm sure with people that will be watching this, whether they're watching it live or they're watching the recorded version of this, I'm sure that you'll enjoy and you've been inspired by what Andrew has been doing. For me, the most important lesson I'm taking out of this is that look into the area of expertise that you have, and see how the expertise that you have can really serve the community in which you come from, and doesn't take away from the commercial viability of whatever it is that you do and whatever expertise that you have. You can still generate a level of income that will give you incredible comfort, and still provide social impact and developmental impact from in the areas that really needs it. So thank you very much, Andrew. I really appreciate the time, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do this a lot more, and so we can talk in great detail especially about the town planning and the housing projects that you've been doing. So thank you for coming on Dev TV.
you to share our journey and our story. And thank you so much for this platform. I mean, to be able to put this information out there. I mean, it's really a wonderful opportunity, and we hope for such more opportunities in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, please go to www.rutindo.com, or you can just Google maths plus culture, and you can watch the video, see what they've done, see what they're doing, make comments, get inspired, and please continue to support our Dev TV. So when so we can bring a lot more inspirational people to your attention. Thank you very much for watching.